Hello, this is Daniel Evans here doing the Week 6 video reflection assignment for sports economics. I repeat, this is for Week 6. So, the first thing I'd like to talk about is how, kind of based on what we talked about in class, I think that another one of the main reasons for colleges investing so much in sports, well, most colleges do, but a lot don't invest that much, is because of just kind of pride, kind of like how nations spend a lot of money on the Olympics, even though it's not profitable for pride. Whether it's to make, whether it's to give other people pride that benefits them by making them look better, or just in some cases it's their actual pride. Also, sports probably encourages donations from rich alumni who either played sports at college and or like the sport. Like the University of Arkansas, for example, their football team was kind of bad until recently. Like in 2021, they had an excellent season. So one of their alumni, Jerry Jones, yeah, it was Jerry Jones. He's the guy who owns the Cowboys and is like a billionaire. And he was an alumnus who played on the football team. So he sends a lot of money to aid their football team and probably the rest of their college. Also, I think I mentioned this in a previous video reflection, it can support entire college towns based on the popularity of the sport and what kind of sport it is. Like the city of Clemson is honest, like half of its economy at least, it's directly connected to sports, and even more is indirectly connected to their football team. And also Penn State, University Park, a large portion of it isn't just based on the huge university, but also the football team. It's There's a reason that those two things sustain the University Park town or city. It's pretty big. Also, and another thing, based on another thing, what we talked about in class, I remember how I read that there used to be in the Southwestern Conference of football, and they had massive cheating, like SMU, which I think was discussed in class. In fact, their unofficial slogan was, "If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying." So yes, SMU did cheating, but it was far from the only one. They just did it the most openly, and they collapsed after SMU got the death penalty because when one team got crippled, it kind of weakened the whole thing. So most of the teams that were in Texas stayed in the Big 12, while a few others went to other conferences or went down to like Group of Five conferences or just even below that. I think that the reason that they were punished was, I think that, well, yes, paying players being a big no-no was part of it, but I think the fact that SMU did it after the NCAA told them not to do it and did it anyways, the fact that they lied about it was probably just as big, if not even more of a part than the paying part, because other colleges have done that, but the NCAA took special offense to them. I think it was kind of the principle, aka making sure other schools don't lie to them on other manners. But of course, the bribing students is also a big problem. Also, one thing I've read about is about how bad teams, like bad FBS teams or FCS teams that are good or bad, are paid to play higher up FBS teams to get an easy win for the FBS teams, but get the lower teams an easy win. So this does make it kind of funny whenever a bad team manages to win and keep the money, which makes it humiliating for the team that brought them there. And I think that there's a bunch of economic stuff behind this, and I think that the quality of either the good team or the bad team or both teams it can determine which teams play worse off teams to play against them. In fact, I think the Big Ten kind of made it so that their teams don't really hire FCS teams to play against them because it's been so lopsided. But I think that another thing about this is that it lets good Group of Five or FCS teams possibly show off their skills against better teams and see if they're ready to level up and go up a level, like from FCS to Group of Five, or from Group of Five to Power Five. That's probably not as big of it as economics is, but it is something to note. Also, for the Spanish Paralympic team that cheated, which I brought up in class, despicable behavior. I read that in an article that the main reason it was done was because the government would give the Paralympic team more money if they won. The government didn't know about the cheating, of course, but the fact they give more money if they won because of national pride, that's what encouraged the guy to make the despicable action of making sure that all but two people on the team weren't actually mentally impaired. And I think that government financial involvement in sports, well, this is an example of it. I think it could have positive but also negative ramifications. Be kind of like colleges choosing whether or not to pay students, but on a larger scale. Also, I think that I think I think that one example, this is some issue that's been talked on in previous weeks, not just this week. I think two examples of how the Olympics represents examples of gender issues in sports and how gender representation in sports is a problem. First, there's Simone Biles in the 2020 Olympics. She didn't want to, well, it was 2020, but it was done in 2021. She didn't want to compete, and a large part of this was because of the mental trauma from being sexually harassed by Nasser, who's rotting in jail now. But a lot of people got mad at her, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of them might not have gone mad if it were the other gender or something else. I think that it's partially subtle, partially not subtle reflection of how systemic differences in gender perception in sports is a problem. Another one is how there was kind of a case where the newspapers, after Katie Ledecky had a great swimming achievement, I forget what, the front page of the paper barely talked about her, but focused a larger part of the page, a much larger part, on focusing on a minor achievement of Michael Phelps. And I think that this focus on famous male athletes over famous female athletes is a big problem in sports. And these two cases in the Olympics are just two examples when reality it exists everywhere in sports to varying extents.